Hello legends and super legends, welcome to Veloharmony. Today's weather is really odd in that it's just going from 17C to 19C, overcast. There's like a 40% chance of rain for a couple of hours during the ride, so it's a light chance of rain, so I'm not even bothering covering my shoes, and I'm not bothering taking a rain gear. It's nice and mild, and so I've got my hat and the base layer and this jersey, not covering my arms, just going to cover my legs. Because it's kind of at the temperature where, 18C, 19, so it's just 17 to 19 is going to stay most of the ride. So going to pick up the boys, I'm running a little behind. So I'm ready to go. I got my food packed and everything. I'm going to finish my electrolyte and head out. Hope you guys get a chance to get some K's in. We'll get some good clips for you guys. Alan's supposed to be joining us today. Okay. As you can see, guys, legends and super legends, as soon as I stepped out the door, the rain's here. So I had to go back in, get my jacket. I just took the light jacket and I covered my shoes. I wasn't gonna do that, but should have known better. It said 40%, I guess, is a strong chance. So it's nice and cool. It's a nice mild morning, but the rain is here. I had the mud guards on the bike, so that was ready. I'm gonna rush over. I'm late for the pickup for those guys. Alan's there, but hopefully it won't rain too much because he said he doesn't have a lot of rain here. So, but it just looks like a shower. So I went ahead and covered my shoes. It's gonna be showering in different parts of the ride. Let me turn on my computer here. As soon as I stepped out the door, it was actually actively raining. You can see the road. It's wet. Let me get this thing synced with GPS. I got my lights going. So I put on the Dexter shoe cover. It's easy to put on. Didn't take me too long. So we're gonna head out there. Pick up the boys. This is 5 Saturdays in a row we've had rain. Very unusual. It's raining right now. Rain's coming down. It actually feels good. I got my shades on the back of my head. I'll just leave it there for now. Since we're on the limit, I mean, as far as the temperature is almost 63 degrees, something like that, 16C. I put on tights just to keep my legs covered because of the rain. But you could ride without tights in this temperature. Yeah, it's actually coming down. Whoa. Well, you guys get to experience this with me. The rain is here. I hope it shows up well on the camera. picked the lightweight Pactimo rain jacket today because it takes up a lot less room than a rain cape, and I wanted to keep my pockets free. I'm gonna go ahead and put the removal away, but I wanted to keep it till I meet the guys. Should be okay.
It's a day where it's supposed to be raining on and off, little showers, small percentages for the first hour or so. So I knew I would have to put the jacket up. And that's why I brought the Pactimo jacket, because it takes up less room.
This is my first ride with the 28mm tires. I ordered a pair of 28mm tires from Merlin, and it came in, and the first thing I noticed, they were wire bead, and I was still able to put them on my wheel without using tire levers. So they must have improved the wire beads, at least in the gator skins.
So as I said, gator skins, some lady said, you got that right.
So
she thought I was talking to her.
I think that lady thought I was talking to her. Anyway, but the rain's dying down here, so it looks like we're gonna be in and out of rain all day long. So I'm dressed right because I'm a little cool right now, and I should heat up once we get going. It's late February, and it's time to start notching things up a bit where applicable.
So as I near the intersection, my phone chirps, and Alan, I know it's Alan because he has his own ringtone. He's letting me know that he's waiting for us.
28 feels more comfortable than the 25, definitely. I just got a text from Alan. I can tell by the sound. He's here. That's Alan over there. Thinking about maybe I can go to the house and get him a shoe cover. Yeah, we're here. So Alan's here. Right start. You know, I can go get you a shoe cover because it's supposed to be raining on and off. That's why I brought this lightweight jersey. Yeah, we can go that way. That will take us to, how you doing?
Good.
That would take us to 1488. There's a route where we can take Dobbins.
This way, I think. Some rain is coming from the south a little bit.
It's 40% for the first couple hours, and then it's cloudy. So yeah, I was just going to, I was not going to bring anything. As I stepped out the door, it was raining.
But I know, I pulled up here, it was fine, and then it started.
Yeah, it just started coming out like 7:25 or something.
Join us.
Okay.
Yeah, Alan mentions that Andy is joining. Andy used to ride with us when we rode with UMC.
We got Alan and Andy joined us. One of the UMC guys.
All right, bro.
Come on. Car, stop.
I'm trying to get some food down, so forgive me. I'm talking with my mouth full here.
I'm just gonna keep my shoe covers on because I don't want my shoes to get messy. Yeah, I walked out the door. I did the intro, telling the guys I'm not wearing anything.
Yeah.
Walked to the back door, rain. So I went back, it was like 7:25. I went back inside, and, you know, and my stomach was bothering me this morning. So it was just a weird morning.
You doing long?
Yeah, we're going. I think we should do tomball, man. What do you think? We went to Ridgely Shores last week.
Yeah.
Go.
I waved this car through because he's sitting there before we even get there. He's just sitting to tell him to go. Run into that every time. So I tell him, Paul, would you need to do tomball because I did not want to repeat the same course that we did last week.
Course every week. We just did Ridgely Shores last week, and we can decide what we do.
So we roll up to the guys over here just to begin the warm up. We'll get into this ride.
This is what happened, Paul. Look, you see how the camera's down?
Yeah.
When I'm filming like that, after it's bounced around a little bit,
Yeah.
I do this.
You bring it
Just a little bit, because when you're following somebody close, it cuts off their heads. Just the way it looks level to you. See that? Because sometimes the gimbal can't adjust quickly enough. I found out what that 2 symbol means on the camera. If for any reason the camera gets too much of a shock, I find out when I was doing that emergency braking video. If for some reason, let's say, it doesn't have to fall, but if it bumps anything really hard, the card in the camera moves. Anytime that little card, the small SD card moves, the camera brings the 2 symbol up. Basically it says something's wrong. The card's damaged, whatever. I went and read up on it. So all you do is you push the button. The camera can still be on, and all I did was I pushed the button on the side, not the one on the top. I pushed the button on the side one time, and the symbol went up. Yeah, that's a small button. Remember, that thing covers it. Because it was already on when it happened. It will only happen when it's on. Yeah, so you film me, and let's say somebody bumps the camera really hard, the 2 symbol will come up because the card shakes in the camera. So it thinks the card is damaged. It's letting you know you got a problem with your video card, you know? And so you touch the power button, symbol went away, and I resumed filming. But what had happened was I was placing the camera in that neighborhood from where I live. That's why I filmed that thing. I was placing it on something. I attached it to the old GoPro stick, and that's what I was trying to hook up on one of those little things on the side of the road, and it slipped. It didn't hit the ground. I caught it, but the action was it wasn't on the gimbal. So the camera freaked out. That's when I went and read up on it. That's what it is.
We had the same problem a few weeks ago, and that's why I was explaining that to Paul. He had noticed that symbol on the camera on one of the other group rides, and I just wanted him to understand what causes it to appear. So we just begin rolling here. We're getting into the ride, and I roll by and tell him nice morning for a bike ride. The rain has subsided, and we really did not experience much more of the rain until later in the ride, close to pretty much the end of the ride. You'll see that. This ride ends up, that's why you will see the thumbnail says something to do with speed changes. With Alan and Andy here, the dynamics of the ride was a little different, very interesting. So it ended up being just a ride that had a lot of speed changes, and so I decided to use that to share with you guys how to adapt to speed changes. So we're just chatting and getting into the ride. You know, for most of us, I mean, Andy rode to the ride. He lives in the area. Alan drove to the ride, so it's still a warm-up. So about 15-20 minutes into the ride, you kind of want to warm up, and that's what we're doing here. So with our ride, anything goes. Whoever shows up, whatever they want to do, we're game. And as I said earlier, we don't, when it's just Paul and I, we don't ride at our max. We cruise. We have a cruising speed. But if we need to go faster, we can. And today was one of our faster rides. So it just ended up being a lot of fun today. Just different than what we do normally. The ride ended up being a little less than 3 hours, which was 2 hours less than we normally do. But the intensity was up, so it was really good. The weather kept changing, so we shortened it when we got into Tomball. It didn't take the long way home, but we wanted to get back because the front came in, so the wind just kept changing direction on us. So that car on the right, I motioned to him, he saw us, he let us go through, and that's what you want to do. It was a close call, we were there, he was there, and so we had the eye contact, you go through. It just minimizes the surprises, because intersections are the places that most issues occur, generally. So Alan's in our team kit. For those of you who are not familiar with it, that's the Veloharmony team kit. The temperature, it says 14C. which probably translates into the low 60s Fahrenheit. Let's see here. Let me pull up the exact number. Let's see, temperature. So 57 degrees Fahrenheit. It actually felt warmer than 57. So it's a warm 14C. So it's one of those days where it was not supposed to go much above, let's say, 17C. When I looked at the original weather forecast, it said 17 to 19. And so I just went ahead and put on my tights since it was going to be raining. It keeps that road muck off of my skin. And that's always a plus. That's the reason I'm wearing it. But this is a day where you could ride without tights. As you see, Alan and Andy are without tights because it's nice and comfortable. And in a little while, you will see me take my jacket off. It'll be a good thing for you to observe how I don't even slow down. I'm in the front and I undo my jacket, I fold it, I put it up, all while riding. But I picked a spot where there wasn't a whole lot of wind. We had a shield. You will see that shortly. So keep that in mind. No hands riding is something you need to practice because it can come in handy. If you're in a Grand Fondo and you want to do something and you don't want to lose the bunch you're riding with, you can either do it off the front or off the back. I recommend you do it either off the front or off the back based on what you're going to see here, because you don't have to worry about a wheel. If you're off the back and you leave enough of a gap, you don't have to worry about that wheel so much. If you're in the front, there's no wheel in front of you. So that's even better and safer, because you don't want to be in the middle of the pack and doing no hands riding. That's a no-no. If you're in the middle of the pack, you need to pull off to the side if you're going to do stuff like that. You don't want to endanger the other riders when you're in the middle, because anything can happen there. Nothing's coming, so it's clear. And the thing is, somewhere around here, it's kind of warm for me, and I decide the rain has stopped since we left the lot. It hadn't rained. Right there, I start to undo. I take off my jacket. You can see I'm still riding. And because the fence on the right is shielding us from the wind, you have to know the conditions. You don't want blowing wind. So you can see I begin to fold my jacket. I fold it into a small package. Basically take the sleeves, put them together, and just roll it. Roll it into a roll. Right there, that's what you see. And put it in my pocket. And that comes with practice. It may look easy, but it takes practice, and it takes a decision to do it when you don't have blowing wind that can affect your front wheel. And I did it at the front of the group, so there was no wheel in front of me I needed to worry about. That car has a signal going left. We're going left the other way, so I lead the boys through. Because the rain has abated, and when I took that jacket off, everything felt perfect. The weather was nice, just a beautiful day. And I don't mind my legs being a little hot on a day like this, but it's my torso that bugs me. And in a while from now, I will take off my hat in a similar fashion. Paul says car back. I just hold my position. There's really nowhere for me to go. The edge of that road has a lot of little puddles of just a little bit of water, and there's no reason for me to ride on the edge. This is not a busy road. It's not a busy time of day. They can move over and go by. You can see my cadence. It's in the 90s right now. On this ride, because of the speed changes, and that's what I want to talk about during the narration today, is to handle. I've mentioned it in other videos. If you're going to be dealing with speed changes, that's not the day to be muscling a super heavy gear for you. You want your cadence to be up so that you can handle those speed changes. I'm pretty much riding where the right tire of the cars move right now, because that's the cleanest spot. There's not a lot of water gathering there. You can tell this part of the road is somewhat dry out here because we've had showers more than steady rain. This is like Saturday number 5. 5 Saturdays in a row we've had rain. That's unusual. And that's what Alan and both Andy were talking about. They're like, we got to get out. Because it's been like a month since I think they rode on Saturday. So they're like getting cabin fever, so they needed to get out. That's really why I invested in the rain gear. I don't want the weather to throw me off. I want to keep my appointment and keep my schedule similar. It just keeps everything rolling, maintains my sanity. Paul comes up to give us a different angle here. In a little while, I get rid of that cap. They claim that cap is for hot weather. It's made out of the light featherweight material that Rafa uses on their jersey. I didn't find that to be any cooler than the other hats. So I think that's marketing speak. I think it depends on how you run. My body runs hot, so I have a base layer on and a jersey, short sleeve jersey, so that keeps me nice and warm. And then the addition of that hat, once the intensity went up, it was a problem. I'm glad that Paul was keeping up with getting those raindrops off the camera. It's easy to forget. So what ends up happening is, because anything goes, once I'm done pulling later in the ride, as Alan gets to the front, Andy gets to the front, they started doing what they wanted to do. And that's the thing I like about our group. I don't try to restrict anybody. Whatever you want to do is fine with me. If it's something, if I feel good and I want to play, I join you. You know, that's the way you want your group to be, somewhat open. And then if your group gets big enough, like when our group gets bigger, what we'll do is split up and have one of us maybe stay with a slower group one day or so forth. That way, nobody feels restricted. I don't like to have too many restrictions in a group ride. I like for people to do what they want to do. It's up to the individual to know their capabilities and what they can handle. So what ended up happening on this particular group ride, it ended up just being fabulous. We did not wait for anyone. There was no reason to. You will see later that the boys, Andy and Alan, decided to skip the park, but Paul and I went ahead and rode the park. But they stopped at the store that we stopped out anyway, so they stopped on the way to the park to get drinks, and by the time we came back they already had Gatorade and water down there, so the stop was short, and then we resumed the ride. So it was cool. So the ride was very quick. We were back early, I think around 11 or something like that, which is early for us. So as I turn over here, I think there's somewhere in a little while I pull off and I think Alan takes over. You can see the pavement is somewhat dry. So it was raining in spots, which was kind of weird. I did not plan to bring shoe covers. Those of you who saw the prologue, you know, I walk out the door, it was just pouring down. Then I went back in, put everything on, then it died down a little bit. And then early when I was headed out there, it came on again. At this point, you saw that.
Yeah.
I've told Paul here, it's a good day, great day for a bike ride. And for me, actually, every day is a great day for a bike ride. I had put new cleats on the shoes I'm wearing, those orange shoes. I did that on Thursday. And I took the tool. I always take a 4mm Allen tool key with me when I go on the first ride or so. And I got everything tweaked. And so they felt really good today. So I'm wearing my Rafa Pro Team bibs and I'm wearing leg warmers. The Rafa leg warmers work really well with the Pro Team. They almost look like you're wearing tights because they really blend very well the way they did them. The lines on the leg warmer lines up with the lines on the Pro Team bib shorts. The details that they think about is why I just like a lot of their little pieces of kit. So here you can hear the wind. The wind ended up being in every direction today because it's warm right now. We got showers. So we got the wind from the east and from the south. as we head out. But it's more from the east than anything, and we're kind of heading almost northeast. Then on the way back, when we stopped at the store, a front came in, so the wind started coming from the north. It started getting cold and it got rainy. See, I took my glasses off the back of my head and put them on because I'm planning on removing that hat. I'm starting to heat up. I'm right at the top of zone 3 here, and my body's just saying that hat has to go. I look for a car here. I think this is where I sit up and pull the helmet off real quickly, right there. I took the glasses out of the way, unclip my helmet, hat off, helmet back on, clip the helmet back in. I told them car left. You can't hear it because the camera is not that powerful to pick it up. And that hat goes in the pocket with my toolkit. Because the hat is very flat, I fold the brim first and then fold it over the brim. So it ended up being almost like a pita bread or something, very small. And I just slipped it between my pocket. I try to use the pockets in that manner so if I need to carry the gimbal, I have space. That's why I brought that lightweight jersey today. I mean a jacket, the rain jacket. It takes up so much less room than the rain cape. Since it wasn't supposed to rain throughout the ride, I brought that since it was only raining for a short time. Those are the decisions you have to make when you're riding. It's important. It's those little pieces of information that you use so that you still have room in your pocket to put other stuff in there. So at this point, we're over 30 minutes into the ride. Everybody's kind of warm. Alan's at the front. I'm staying to the left to stay out of the spray. That's the reason you see me slightly to the left. Because it's a little bit of moisture here. It rained here. Apparently we missed it, which was cool. But you can see this pavement is shiny from the water. We see that the other lanes were clear. That car had stopped. We went through since we're going straight. No worries. You can see the water flicking up. And you hear that wind. That's what we heard. I've tried as much as possible to get the sound of the wind to be close to what we hear when we're out there. I get a lot of comments from some people on the channel, and they have a right to their opinions. Oh, you know, there's too much wind noise and yada yada yada. Well, when we're out riding, we hear it. So this ride is a ride along. So when you go ride the bike and it's windy, you hear the wind. So all I try to do is get the decibel level to where it's realistic. But to have a film where you hear no wind like we're riding in a lab is phony. You know, when we're outside, you hear wind, car horns, all of that. So that's what this ride is about on the Veloharmony channel. I've seen a lot of channels on YouTube that ride look like you're riding in a test tube. I'm not going to do that. This is a realistic ride that we want you to experience what we experience. That's another reason we ride in the rain. We don't just do sunny rides. Teaches you how to handle your bike. So those of you who don't like wind noise, you're on the wrong channel. There's a lot of videos on YouTube with no sound. You just see people riding. There's not even a commentary. I've even had somebody on the channel say we shouldn't even talk during our rides, and I shouldn't do the commentary. Needless to say, I ignored that person because they're clueless. Yeah, this is what makes this channel unique, and the analytics reflect that. So, you know, that's why you have to be careful where you get your advice. If I were listening to every Tom, Dick, and Harry, this channel would be a mess. So we turn left here, And you notice I avoid the white line on that side. I take a wide turn. I keep my bike as upright as possible in the wet. So Alan pulls off and Andy goes to the front to take a pull. So we'll soon be out on what I call the open road. We'll be out of this neighborhood after the next turn. Letting everybody know we're turning right. And this takes us to Creekside Green. This is a nice road for several miles, no intersection. You can kind of get a good pace going. It was great having Andy join us. It's always great having Alan join us. So right turn here is clear. You can hear Alan's bike when he brakes. The carbon rims and his special brake pads sound like a jet. I teased him about it. I've said the same thing to Christian when he rides with us. The carbon rims have a unique sound when you brake. So Andy's pulling here, and we're on Creekside. We're rolling. We're well into the ride, about 41 minutes into the ride. Everybody's warmed up. This part of the road is not very wet. It rained here earlier, so it's just a little damp. So I got closer. The speeds are picking up. This is kind of rolling terrain. The challenge with rolling terrain, you can't be shy to shift. You need to always try to keep your cadence optimal for you. Especially when you're riding with people who are changing the speed. This is a slight downhill. Yeah, it says -1. Goes to 2. It's not that much of a downhill. They come quickly, they go down, and before you know it, your speed is sapped as it goes back up. So I try to be in a gear when I'm behind that will keep me in the low to mid 90s in this situation, because if I need to rev it up above in the high triple digits, it's a gear that's not easily to spin out. Whatever it may be. If I can feel the gear in the low 90s, I know it's enough to spin to like 120 without just spinning it out. And I just do it by feel. I don't worry about the actual gear as opposed to what does it feel like that I'm in right now. I'm looking for cars, nothing's coming. I go ahead and move out just a little bit to discourage anybody that might want to pass later, to let them know we're using this lane. I mean, we're moving almost, it says 39 kilometers an hour, so that's a decent speed to get through here pretty quickly. Since the speeds are up, I'm close to Andy. I'm staying a little to the left. Just out of habit, I like to see around the rider I'm following. I don't like to be blinded and just be right directly behind the rider. For me to follow a rider in that manner, you'll have to be somebody that I trust explicitly to give perfect warnings and everything. So that comes from knowing who you're following. But generally, you want to be able to see around the rider you're following. At this point near the turn circle, there's a lot of water on the road. I'm gonna move more to the left. You can see me move over, so I'm staying out of any possible spray. but still getting the benefit of the draft. And Alan is not following very close here. I mean, we're not going full gas or anything, but it's not exactly easy. This is a slight incline. It says 1%. You feel it at this speed anyway. You can see my cadence. I use my cadence to stay with any changes in speed. You want to be able to rev it up and let it settle. You can see the white bar going up. The green bar is indicating the amount of meters that we're above sea level. In that little overlay display with the cyclist, the white bar, when my cadence goes up, the white bar goes up. I'm coasting, you can see it coming down. The white bar is coming down as I'm coasting to the light. That's a good indicator to help you know when the cadence is going up, so you don't have to worry about the number itself. So I can see that the yellow light here is already yellow. The light for the other side is already turned yellow. I thought Alan's going to change. It changes. There's a car behind us, and I know he's there. So as I turn, I go ahead and wave him over so he can pass. It's wide right here. And go ahead and get going. Some of these drivers are slow to react. I mean, it's like, you know, just go. I don't like them following me unnecessarily. Just go. So I take the lead from Andy here and just try to keep the effort the same. I waited a little longer to move over on the shoulder because there were little rocks and they were the same color as the asphalt. And if you hit those, they can cause you to have a flat. So I stayed near the white line until we passed them before I moved over. And I'm just trying to settle in on some kind of a tempo. It's not raining right now. It's just a nice morning to be outside. And what the wind you're hearing, this is exactly how we were hearing it. In fact, when you're riding in conditions like these and you're talking to people that are not very close to you, they can't even hear you. A lot of times you have to repeat yourself or get close to them. That's how it is when you ride in the wind. And the entire morning the wind was swirling around because we had a front in the area. That's what was causing this rain, because it had been warm throughout the week. And this front was moving in, this cold front. And whenever that happens, it stirs things up. If you watch my cadence, I'm in the mid-90s. And this is zone 4. I'm keeping it in the same zone we've been in since Alan and Andy was pulling. So my heart rate is about 5 beats above where it was when I was in the draft. But it feels the same to me. That's why I like to use RPE. These numbers, I don't really like to rely on just numbers. I don't mind using the numbers after the ride to analyze stuff, but during the ride, just feel. Because that, I think, is a true barometer. You feel good, you go hard. You can go harder. You always need to know if you got something left. And so I'm just keeping my tempo the same, staying in a fairly moderate gear, because in a little while this road has a slight grade. That's probably why my heart rate's going up, because of the wind, and then we're coming to that grade. So we're doing about 20 miles an hour, 32 kilometers an hour, going up to this grade here. So with the wind and the grade, that's a very good effort to carry here. This is about 15 beats below my time trial pace. So I time trial in the 180s. The About 177 to 180, I really feel like I'm working. But it takes a lot to get me there. This zone is a good pace here. This is a hard effort. The road is going up here. It says 1%. I think it gets around 2. It's 1 point something. It's gonna flip back and forth. There it says 2. So I'm keeping my cadence up around in the 90s, which is good, because if somebody were to come around me, I would just rev it up. I wouldn't need to shift. So when you're riding in the group where the speed is changing, right here I check for cars. Even though it's early, I'll go ahead and move over because there was nothing coming. Both lanes were clear up to like a mile back. So I went ahead and just moved over because I knew we all had plenty of time to go ahead and move over. And whatever cars would come, they can just slot in behind us. Didn't want us coming up here and queuing up. Or sometimes you can't get over when you get near the intersection.
This one.
So we roll through an intersection here, and we're beginning the Flint Ridge Hills coming up. So Alan's leading us. Andy rolls behind Alan, I'm behind Andy. And what I want to talk about in this section of the ride is that I want you to pay attention to my cadence as we begin to hit the rollers. I think Alan is still leading as we hit the rollers. And all I don't do much shifting. I just spin. I'm in a 53-23, not at this moment. When we begin the rollers, I put it in the 53-23 because for a 4% grade, I didn't want to be bogged down. And it was the perfect ratio to handle anywhere from 2% and up, especially if the speeds were going to change. So I'm in a lower gear that I normally would ride solo just to be able to react. I look back to make sure where Paul was before I move over because there's a little bit of spray from the road getting on me, and I wanted to make sure I stayed out of it. So I moved over to the left here, just slightly off the left of Andy. That's another reason I'm wearing my glasses at this moment, just to keep any kind of spray from getting in my eyes. As a rule, I avoid cycling without glasses because you can get little bugs and other things in your eye. In the winter, if it's rainy, it's not that big of a deal, but then when you're following people. There's a guy running on the side, so I point to him, and then you will see here, he's right there, and he stops, and he crosses in front of us, so it surprised us a little bit right there. I mean, Andy put his hand out. But it wasn't very close, it was just unexpected. So right there, we begin the climb. You look at my cadence. Right here, Alan presses on the pedals. We're doing about 20 miles an hour up a, 18 miles an hour up a 4% climb. And I'm just using cadence. And after we crest the climb, then he turns up the power. So I stay in the same gear and I just soft pedal. Then he unclips, and he told us later that his calves were tightening up on him. So he was stretching his calf, I guess, on that when he unclipped. But I was just following to see what they were doing. But what I noticed was that the power was applied on the uphill, but not on the downhill. So here we go again. You can see my cadence again. I use cadence to stay. So I'm stressing my aerobic system, which gives me more flexibility. But you want to do that only if you've conditioned your body to tolerate that, to have the necessary adaptation. Because it does stress your aerobic system. You see my heart rate jump to 170. You got to be able to recover quickly and go again. And we come here again, you can see my cadence is going up. So once again, this is a slight grade. It might be 2% or so. I don't know how steep this is. I think it's the one before John Cooper Road. Yeah, this is not as steep because I'm only at 102 RPM, 1%. But you'll feel it at this speed. And right here, it starts slowing down. So I just go through. Because the kind of engine I have, once I get going, I really don't like to back off too much. So I just go through and I lead the way, because Alan had asked if we're turning right, but sometimes we go straight. And so I just went through and told him, yeah, we're turning right. And I just kept the effort close to what they were doing back there. So in order to be able to do what I did back there was that I kept my cadence high when they were going hard, so my legs were fresh. But it did stress my lungs and my aerobic system. So you need to be able to train your body to be able to tolerate that. If you're going to do any kind of fast group riding, you need to be able to stress your oxygen system so that you can keep your legs fresh. That's what keeps your legs fresh.
No problem. Still get hot, but it's only for hot weather.
I was telling Paul that the featherweight cap fit behind my patch kit with no problem, but the claim is for hot weather, and I still felt hot. So that doesn't. It's not any different than the other caps that are supposedly not featherweight. So we resumed after the intersection, and I went ahead and just stayed at the front. I was kind of hoping that light would have been green. But on this ride, we hit a lot of green light. It ended up being a good workout. So in a short while, I'm checking here on this for cars. It's clear. I let them know it's clear. It's a four-way stop sign. I think the next intersection is where the chain broke 2 weeks ago. Yeah, I'm telling Andy about it. And I think we actually end up seeing the chain on the side of the road, because we had placed it on the lip of the curve where we stood. And I didn't remember to take it and give it to my wife when she came to swap out the bikes. So it's still there 2 weeks later. Paul spots it.
Yeah. Look, the chain's still there.
It used to buy that lot here.
Was it 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Stood right there, Melissa brought it. This is my other bike.
So Alan said I need to buy the lottery ticket because the chain's still there 2 weeks later in the same spot. Yeah, I was kind of surprised it was still there. And so in a little bit, Paul pans to it. There's the chain sitting right there from 2 weeks ago that broke on the side of the curb. That's where we stood waiting on the bike change.
Yesterday morning, there was no rain, but the ground was wet just from the moisture.
Yeah, we're talking about the dew. It's very humid. Humidity is around 90% with all the rain we've had. So the light changes and we resume. It's a short light. We rolled through. I'm feeling pretty good this morning, so I just rolled to the front to continue to pull. So I figure I will pull for a little bit and then swing off, and then everybody can take their turns at the front. We're in the heart of the Woodlands, Texas. And I'm just settling into some kind of a rhythm here. Get us into this ride. In a few miles, it gets very interesting. We get into Terramont Parkway, the pace picks up. So there was never a dull moment on this ride. Not that it ever is. You can see the water. I don't know if it's just from his wheel. It might be from his wheel, because there's water by the side of the road. There's a car coming by. That's why you see us queuing up on the right. Make it easier for him to pass us. Paul had called it out, so we just drifted a little to the right. The spray from the wheels are getting on the camera lens. That's what gets in your eyes and gets on you when you're following people in the wet. Gets you dirty. So for the most part on this ride, I don't think I allowed my cadence to go below 80 RPMs for any appreciable amount of time. So the reason I'm stating that is, find what cadence enables you to react to speed changes and stay in that range. So I pull off here and I check before I pull off and give Andy enough room to come by. You can see me drifting back so that by the time Alan passes me, I slip behind his back wheel, because I want Paul to stay back there to film for you guys. That's the key. You don't need to go all the way to the yellow line. Some people do that. That's just more room to come back over. You don't need to use the whole road. We try to use about half of the lane. That's good enough. And so as you drift by, when you pull off, I pulled off into the wind and drifted by and slipped right behind the wheel that I wanted to get behind. That way I didn't use any energy to accelerate. Around here the road starts to go up, slight grade. And all I do is, you can see my cadence. I was pulling at 90, let's say. Now look at my cadence. I'm using that to stay with the change in speed. Andy changed the speed a bit because we're going up a grade here. And I increased my cadence to keep up with the change in speed. I did not change the gears. Especially in rolling terrain, you don't need to do too much of a dramatic change, especially if it's mildly rolling and you don't have a lot of major descents. We get comments from people on the channel who show their inexperience by saying, You call those hills? I got hills in my area. The terrain and the severity of the terrain doesn't mean anything. That's why we have gears on the bike. That's why the derailleur was invented. So when I get those comments, I just chuckle, because it's kind of ridiculous to say, oh, you call those hills? We have hills. Why do you? So my thing is, why do you think people get dropped on a flat road? You know, the intensity of the ride is not determined by the terrain. You think the spectators run next to the professional riders in the tours because what? They're not going hard? They're going hard. They're doing 450 watts, but they're on a mountain pass of, let's say, 12 to 15%. So their speed is limited. They're in a small gear, but it doesn't mean they're not going hard. They're just not generating speed to the point where you can't run alongside them. So that doesn't mean anything. So I invited some of them, come join us. We'll show you whether the hills or not. So, you know, people around here get dropped on a perfectly flat road because it's hard in the right gear. Hard is hard. It doesn't matter what the terrain is. So don't fall for that foolishness. If you live at the base of an 8% hill, you got to put that thing in a baby gear to start your ride, because if that's what you're starting on, you're not going to go full gas cold. So I pull over to the left here because we're turning left. I checked. We're turning on Alden Bend. We begin to go somewhat. I think we're going more north, and then we'll start going west. It says northeast right now. So don't fall for that foolishness. Oh, I live in the mountains and this and that. It's how you ride those mountains that matter. The effort you're putting out is what matters. If you get a 32 rear cog and you crawl up the mountain spinning a baby gear, that doesn't mean anything. If that's your plan that day, we hit this green light. It's changing already. So, you know, I kind of chuckle when people say, oh, I've got mountains. Use what you have. Put it in the appropriate gear. Hit the right zones. That's what matters. Because when you go someplace that has mountains, you will put it in a little chain ring, find the appropriate gear, and hit the same zone. So don't fall for that foolishness about, oh, I got 8% climbs or 12% climbs. That doesn't mean anything. What matters is your body doesn't care whether you're going up a hill or not. What matters is the effort you're putting out. So if you have a power meter and you're putting out 350 watts, you think it matters whether you're on the flat road or uphill? It's just your tempo is going to be different, but the effort is the same. 350 watts is 350 watts. So when people make those comments, it shows their inexperience. And all I do is just laugh. So somehow I end up back at the front, and I don't mind. I just keep going. So I had pulled a little while ago, and you know, I think at the intersection the turn got messed up, but it doesn't matter. I'm feeling good this morning. I like to work hard. You know, since we were going to do Tomball, and the way we've been riding, I figure it will be about 3 hours. And we normally, Paul and I will do 4.5, 5 hours. So since it was going to be shorter, in my mind, I'm thinking I might as well get the workout in. So the situation is such that I had just pulled, and then I let Andy take his turn, and we got mixed up at the light. And if that happens to you and you're with a group where the pace is hard for you, all you do is you pull off the front, let somebody else come through if you need to be in the draft. It's not a big deal. So if this pace were hard for me, I would have just pulled off and drifted back to the back and let whoever's there take their turn. That's all you would do. You don't have to be up there if you're not feeling good, or the pace is not compatible with the effort level you want to put out. At this point, I'm keeping my cadence up. We're going up another grade. It may not register, but it's it's a grade, it's a slight, it's a false flat, we call them. You feel it. And then with the wind, the resistance is there. So what I'm doing is I'm keeping my cadence high so I can ride a slightly smaller gear, but keep the pace close to the same effort. If you look at my heart rate, it's 169. Most of this ride, it's been in the 160s to the low 170s. And that's what I gauge it by. I don't really look at heart rate that much as far as RPE, the rate of perceived exertion. I go by feel. So right here, this is a good pace. This is zone 4. So we're working. So Paul comes to the side to get a side shot. So I rev up my cadence a little bit, get on his wheel, probably a few RPMs. And he expected me to come around, and I kind of missed this one. I sat behind him, and the speed dropped. See, my cadence dropped, and then Alan and Andy felt it, so they just rolled past, and then I got on Andy's wheel, so Paul was back in his position. Paul only came up to the front to just get a different shot. It's not easy coming up to the front in zone 4. And so he did not want to sit there at the same effort. So when he got up there, he moved over to the right and slowed down. I should have gone on the left, but I didn't. I thought he was going to actually take a pull, because sometimes he does. But the guys came around, so I just went on their wheel, and we're back in the same position. So you see, we hit another green light here. This is Kirkendall. And I just stand up to keep the gear rolling. And even though I'm standing and keeping the gear rolling, I'm keeping my eye on everybody to see who wants to be at the front. You know, because if no one had taken the impetus to get to the front, I would have just rolled to the front. That's kind of what you, if you're feeling good, that's what you do. But Alan wanted to be there, I could tell. He picked up the pace. That guy in the truck waited for us. He could have gone, but he waited, so we thanked him and we continued. And this is exactly how the wind sounded to us. Throughout this ride, there was rain on and off. I'm adjusting my heart rate belt. I think it slid down a little bit. I've got one of those Garmin, the standard, the non-premium heart rate belt, which has been really bomb-proof. I tried the premium strap, and they just spiked. They gave erroneous readings, and after 3 months, they went kaput. I'm not sure why they called it premium. So the one I have is made out of hard plastic, and it just works. It's several years old, so the strap stretches a little bit. You have to adjust it. So sometimes it slides, but I like having it on so I can go back and look at how hard my body was working at various stages of the race. And I look at how long I stayed in each zone for the ride. I'm calling it a race, but it's not, the ride. But it would be the same thing if I were to do a race or a Grand Fondo. I analyze stuff after the fact. During the ride, I don't worry about it too much. I glance at it from time to time. So stop sign we're coming to. It's clear. Andy puts his hand on to let us know. We roll through. You can see, because I'm in a moderate gear, I can get back up to speed without changing my position. If you watch throughout this ride, I may point it out in other spots, I am not shifting or scooting forward or scooting back. I just pedal faster, or I soft pedal when necessary. When you're fitted to your bike, you shouldn't have to be moving around. I know even the pros move around, but even the pros get it wrong, because even the pros play around with their position, some of them anyway, to where you wonder what they're doing. Because I see these guys nowadays, their saddles are tilted down. I was watching GCN, watching one of their videos, and some of the pros are setting their saddle down because the rules have changed. That allows 9 degrees of tilt down, so they lower their stem more than was comfortable, and then lower the saddle. We hit another green light here. It turns yellow as we go through. You can see me rev up my cadence. So I will make a video on why it's not a good idea to copy the pros on everything. You got to take it with a grain of salt. Some of the pros don't know what the heck they're doing. They're kids and they're trying stuff. So you want to pick which pros you're going to copy, and you want to pick what exactly you copy. Because some of the positions I saw, I just laughed. There is no way you tilting your saddle down 7 degrees is comfortable. That means your weight on those bars that you lowered, claiming you're getting more aero. So they do a lot of stuff, crazy stuff, and it was good of GCN to do that video. The guy just interviewed them, and I kind of laughed because I could tell he wasn't interviewing the top boys. The top boys don't mess with their positions. You're not gonna see Froome and Nibali lowering the saddle, you know. So he was talking to guys that I've never heard of, and so obviously domestiques or whatever, and they seem to be very young, like they were new pros, and maybe they'll learn in time. You need to set that thing, and once it's done, you shouldn't have to be messing with it. So if you have to tilt your saddle down to make you comfortable to the bars, I mean the bars are too low. That was one of their explanations. Anyway, we rode through here. We got there first. Alan told us with Claire we rolled through. Alan is pulling currently. Andy is in front of me. Andy's wearing the UMC kit, and Alan's wearing our team kit. At this point in the ride, it's warmer than I thought it would be. That's why you saw me earlier pull my hat off, and definitely pull the rain cape off. It's not raining now. I end up just leaving the rain cape even later in the ride when we get rained on at the end. I didn't bother putting it on. So we got to this stop sign. This guy had moved over to the left. I don't know why they like to pass at intersections. Driver's Ed 101 says that's a no-no. So I just waved him through. He can go on. So we get to the business of riding. And you see my cadence. I rev it up to catch back up to the guys after freewheeling there after that stop sign. So by using my cadence and stressing my aerobic system, I'm saving my legs for future efforts. It keeps your muscular system fresh. Once again, the road goes up and we turn on the power. Even though I don't have power numbers showing, power is generated by cadence and the size of the gear you're in. You don't generate a lot of power at 45 RPMs in a huge gear. That's torque. It's high cadence for a gear that gives you true power. Now you can keep the same power once you're cruising by shifting to a higher ratio to maintain. But for acceleration purposes, the pure velocity comes from your cadence, a high cadence. That's what gives you that burst of speed to close gaps. Right here, I reach for a gel about maybe 40 minutes before I actually need it. I take the gel before my body needs it, so that when it needs it, it's already there. That's what they mean when they say eat before you're hungry. Because I'm not hungry. I started the ride in the parking lot eating. Those of you who remember, I was talking with my mouth full. I was eating granola bars. But that was not my first meal. I already ate at the house. I drank Gatorade before I walked out the door, a full bottle. So I was already topped off. So what I'm eating now is for the next hour. That's the way you must do it. Especially if the intensity of the ride changes on you. You want to make sure you're fueled up so you avoid the bonk. So Alan pulls off, Andy takes over. This is branch crossing. We're headed somewhat southwest. I'm waving that car by because I was keeping my eye on him as we went by the intersection. I knew he was there. Waved him by to go on. A lot of the drivers are not sure what we're gonna do, so they tend to hesitate. And I just wanted him to get by, he or she, whoever's driving. I'm staying a little to the right of Andy's wheel. That's where the draft is. The wind is coming from the left right now, very heavily, and so I'm staying to the right. Plus I'm out of the spray. There's not much of a spray because the road's just damp. And so I'm just staying slightly off to his right. You have to continually look for that pocket where you can save your energy as you ride. It's going to change, sometimes constantly, sometimes not so much, but you always have to be aware of where the least resistance is coming from as far as the wind when you're in the group. So I tell the boys to watch the wide line here. We turn. If you watch me, I turn wide. I've ridden in the rain a lot, and keeping that bike upright, you can carry more speed with a turn like that, especially in that corner where it was safe. We start to go up the climb, and Andy presses on the pedals here. We're doing about probably, I think, 17 miles an hour. 17, 18 miles an hour up. This is a 1%, yeah, it just showed a 1% grade. You feel it in your legs, especially with the way we've been riding. We've had no breaks so far, and it's about an hour 20 into this ride. It's almost halfway. This is why we ride long when we ride on our endurance days. So it doesn't really matter whether we stop or not on this ride. My body's used to riding 5 hours without a break, or just a short health break. So in my mind, psychologically, I'm not even thinking about it. Andy pulls to the left, I go through, and I try to keep the same pace he was holding, just to keep it interesting. Doesn't mean you have to do the same. If you're feeling good and you get to the front and you want to kick it up a notch, fine, you can go up a little bit. For me, I want to keep it the same pace he had, because I can stay there a little longer at that pace than to just break it up. This is a small group. There's only 4 of us. So all I'm doing is keeping the effort in the same zone by feel. And every now and then I might glance at the heart rate number, because that's not super reliable. It's going to change based on conditions. The wind's still coming from the left. I'm staying to the left of those little puddles of water, just a few that you see there. I don't want to pick up too much, so I stay to the left. So based on where I'm staying, the rest of the guys will ride in a similar spot. And that keeps the people in the back that don't have mud guards out of that spray as well. So that they're not going to be spraying whoever's behind them. I focus on telling you guys about the effort. I get on the drops here just to change my position, but the effort is more important than your speed, because the wind or the hill determines what speed you see. That's what I was talking about earlier. You can be doing 10 kilometers an hour at 350 watts or 400 something watts, depending on terrain. So Paul came again for another shot. I went ahead and just rolled on his left. I've got a rhythm going, and I want to maintain it. So don't worry about your speed. I say that all the time. Focus on your effort. You live at the base of a steep climb, make sure either you warm up on your trainer or have a low rear gear. I've got like a 27, 28 on another wheel. Some people got like a 32. And spin up the hill when you're just starting, so you can warm up. You can warm up on a hill. Put on a 39, 32 or 39, 28. You might be able to warm up on a hill. So it's not about, oh, I got a 20% hill. But nobody rides a 20% hill. You claw up that thing. They're hard for everybody, even the pros. You know, so don't get hung up on that. Focus on what you're doing. So if you got a power meter, focus on the effort you're putting out, whatever your power zone is. If you got a heart rate monitor, focus on whether you want to be in zone 2 or zone 3 or whatever. That's what matters. So your average speed would be low, but you've been climbing hills all day. So who cares? People worry about average speed. Even these rides that we do in the hills here, even though they're light rolling hills or slight rolling hills, yeah, our average speed is not 32 kilometers an hour, but it doesn't mean we didn't work hard. Like right now, we're doing, let's see, I'm in zone 4, about the middle of zone 4 for me. We're doing 29 kilometers an hour because of the wind, and these are rollers. We're in an area where you can't really see it, but this road goes up and down. You feel it. There, I don't know if it's going to register, but right about here it starts to sting the legs. So you got to be shifting. That's one of the nice things of having the shifters near your brake levers. Very convenient. That's one of the innovations I really like on the bicycle. Because back in the day we had them on the down tube. And it wasn't that far away. You'd reach down and shift. But then everybody knew. If your bike's tuned and you're spinning, when you shift, people can't even tell. They don't hear you. They don't hear me shift on my bike. I got everything dialed in. You can see water. It rained here right before we got there. So it's a little wetter than the other roads we've been on. So there's showers in different parts of town. So all through here, they're grades. But they're not hitting 1%, so the overlay does not show it. I pulled that strap, just centered it for feel. Sometimes it gets in a position where it feels odd on you. That's what you see me doing. And I want to stress that I'm able to ride like this because of all the miles we put in. This is not easy. For somebody else, they won't be able to sit up and take off their hat, sit up and adjust the heart rate belt. That would be the least of their worries. They will be trying to just hold the pace. And so if that's you in your group ride, you need to keep riding on the days when you're not with the group and build your endurance so that you can that guy went by, and after he passed, he blew his horn. So I thought there was somebody else behind us. And so I was waving out, and then Paul said, no, nobody's there, something like that. And I'm not sure why he blew his horn after he passed. We're riding here. We ain't worrying about cars. Keeping a good pace going. So keep that in mind. It's important that you focus more on your effort, because once you know what you can handle psychologically and physically, you relax when you're riding. If you know you can ride 5 hours, or you know you can handle zone 5 for 10 minutes, let's say, and you start to ride with a group and the group's only doing zone 2, it doesn't matter. You know you can handle a longer ride if you go hard during the week for good periods of time. So it all works out. I guess Alan's stretching his calf. I'm not sure what. So well, he did that when we were backing off for the light. So that's the thing. He wasn't doing anything unsafe. And so that's what I think he said his calves were tightening up.
So want to continue filming?
Let's give it a break.
So I have the camera here. We had cut the filming at Woodlands Parkway. Now we're on this Dobbins Huffsmith Road heading south towards Tomball, Texas. And Paul is not aware that I have the camera on, because we had just turned it off a few miles back. And he's reaching for a gel to top off his tank. I just turned the camera off, getting situated, and since I saw him reaching for a gel, I figured I was just sit behind him until he gets back in the draft to keep everybody on film here. This is a quiet back road that is heavily used by cyclists. There aren't any stops until we hit 2978.
You hear the wind, right? That's what those guys don't want to hear. Like, you're out here, we hearing the wind, you're going to hear the wind.
We're talking about the wind. I asked Pastor, you hear the wind, right? He said, yeah. I was telling him about the guys, that the few people that have been commenting about there's too much wind noise. This is what we hear when we're out there when it's windy. That's why you have to repeat yourself a lot of times. I had somebody, I don't remember who, a legend that had suggested that there's something you can buy and put on your ear to lessen wind noise. I'm like, I already wear enough crap. The last thing I need is to put something on my ear to reduce wind noise. It's not that big of a problem. We're not doing a whole lot of talking when we're riding hard in the wind, and when we do chat, we're side by side, so it's not an issue. So yeah, I just didn't think it was something I wanted to bother with. I'm looking to carry less stuff, and I put something on my ear to reduce wind noise. I don't know what it was, but it just wasn't something I would be interested in. So we hit this highway here, 2978, Corville Huffsmith Road is called. This will take us across, there's a creek here called Spring Creek. So this takes us across Spring Creek here. Spring Creek runs from Tomball all the way to the Woodlands and into East Houston. These are the creeks that when the reservoir is released into, that cause a lot of flooding. That's why the bridge is so long. The whole area is for the creek. So even though when it's dry, there's a trickle of water. When it rains a lot, it can be like a river.
Watch that bump.
I'm telling Paul to watch the bump because he was looking back, and there's a bump over there where when we get off this bridge, they didn't line it up very well, and I don't think they're gonna fix it. This driver here sees us and then turns. It wasn't that close, but I don't understand why he couldn't wait. He or she couldn't wait. So those are the things you got to look out for. So Andy pulls off the front here. He's been pulling back there. And Alan takes over. We're coming up to an overpass. Our overpass here that gets up to like 5%. You can see it says 16C. So we're in the 60s, the low 60s. And it actually feels like you're in the low 60s. So it's right at 60 degrees according to the temperature, but it felt a little warmer than that. So I had a base layer, a summer base layer, and my regular Molteni jersey, and it was perfect. My legs did not feel hot, so I like it when I get things right and they're close, because these are the kind of days where, yeah, you can go without stuff on your legs. But in the winter, you know, it's still winter. I kind of err on the side, especially on a wet day. I don't like all that muck from the road on my skin. We're carrying a good speed into the base of this climb. We're going into the wind. It's blowing from the southeast right now. In about maybe a half hour, it will switch on us while we're at the store. And that's one reason why we just decided, let's get this ride over with when we're at the store, because it just got cold and it started raining, and we're like, there's the front just blowing in. So we begin to climb here. Alan stands, Paul stands, I'm sitting. You can see my cadence. Whatever gear I'm in, I'm just maintaining. So I've got the camera, Andy's behind me. See, I've got up to 95 RPM. Right about here, I shifted up. My cadence went down. I shifted to a harder gear. It just felt better. So by the time they shifted, I did not need to shift. I was already in the gear I needed. So I shifted when I felt like I wanted to. So that's you kind of have to ride and listen to your body. Right here, we're coasting downhill. That's a nice overpass. So if you live somewhere where that's all you have, you could do repeats on that if you want to work on hill climbing, or into the wind. We have a lot of wind here. I use that a lot for working on climbing. So when I ride in an area that has mountains, I have no problems. I can ride the mountains. Find a gear that works for your body and ride it. You could even do some time trial training to complement your hill climbing, because they work close. The efforts are close. In the corner back there, I took a wide turn just to let everybody come in front.
Lovely day for a bike ride. It's beautiful.
It's a good day for a bike ride. Every day is a good day for a bike ride. So this light, for some reason, did not change for us today. It's been behaving.
The last few weeks it's been changing for us.
So we'll wait until it's clear and we take it.
All right, guys.
Treat it like a stop sign. So Alan's still messing with his legs. I asked him.
You need to stop? Okay. All right.
So I give Paul the camera here.
Got you on camera, my brother. All right. Aren't you questioning that?
Paul says I'm sneaky. I told him I've had him on camera from back on that back road. He didn't know. He didn't know the camera was on. Now, if you notice, every time I would drink, I would take my bottle like from the back, the seat tube or the down tube. I've got different mixes in those bottles. So I put my electrolyte on the seat tube so it can stay upright and not spill on my frame easily. And then I have a lighter drink on the down tube, which is more of a slope. So I know exactly what I need to get to. So since the guys have been pulling us on those back roads, I go ahead and roll to the front here. One of my favorite roads, Zion Road. Zion Road has a grade. You see how carefully I take that turn? These pavements, when there's water on them, this smooth asphalt might as well be like glass. So you gotta be careful when you turn, because it hasn't been raining hard enough to wash the oils off the road, the oils that come from cars. So the rain, when it's light rain, you gotta be careful. The roads are slick. So we're rolling, and this wind is just whipping up. So we're going west, and we got wind in our face. So it's changing on us because of that front that's in the area. You can hear the wind. That's what we heard. I dubbed it down to get the decibel level to where it was comparable to what we're experiencing out there. So besides the wind, once we get up above, there's a bridge coming up maybe about a kilometer ahead, probably half a kilometer. We go over a bridge, and then the road has a grade. I don't know if it ever registers, but it becomes a false flat. So right here where this bridge is, there's a little creek I think that runs there. That's why they put this here. So there's a bridge here, and then if you look ahead, you will see where those cars are. That road is a grade. Right here is a slight downhill. It says -0. And right about here it starts leveling off, and then it becomes a false flat. So you feel it on this road. Now go ahead and settle in, and just decided to work the pedals and get us through this area here. So I'll move over more into the lane because the wind is blowing from the front and on our left, just to give the guys a little bit of shelter if they want to use it. So that's another reason you want your kit to fit you well. You can see how the rain jacket that Paul's wearing is flapping, and you look at my jersey, nothing. That means the wind's slicing over me. It reduces your drag. So I'm not in my full aerodynamic mode or anything. I'm just in a rhythm because it actually feels like I'm climbing here. And all along, I'm keeping in mind that we've got the park, and the park has a bunch of hills in there. So I want to make sure that I save something for the park when we get there. So even though I could go harder, I'm pacing myself. I check for traffic. I let the boys know it's clear. I think after that I pull off. Yep. And Paul's behind me, so as he comes by, he hands me the camera. So I slot in behind Alan, and I think I'm putting the camera on my left. Since they're on the right side of the road, the lens on the camera is off center to one side. So by putting it on my left, it's not directly behind anybody since they're on the right. And also, I can use my right hand to shift freely, since the left side has the shifter for the big chainring, and I'm just in the big chainring.
My back.
So by staying off to one side, I can see the obstacles. Paul's alerting us. I told Alan, I said, watch out for that thing in the middle. There's a piece of the pavement here that never really patched very well. I don't care to go over those. It kind of rattles you a bit. So Alan pulls to the left, and this is where he usually likes to pick up the pace. So I get on his wheel, and I tell Paul as I go by, I say, come on. I didn't get a response from Paul, but Paul knows that the park is coming also, so that's on his mind. So nothing's coming, and Alan proceeds to pick up the pace here as we finish this climb. A short bump, and then the road levels off, and then it begins to go downhill. So what I do, I go ahead and just put it in a comfortable gear that I can rev when I need to. I'm probably in like a 52 317 or something like that. Nothing too big. Because I've got the camera, so I don't want to do a lot of shifting. So you can see we've already hit 40 kilometers an hour as we go down this slight grade. It says -0, it's flat. It's a little bit of a roller, has a dip here and then it levels off. So we're moving at a good clip. And I'm just sitting on Alan's wheel. The camera's on the left. There's not much room on the right. So I'm sitting pretty much directly behind him, but because the camera's on the left, it appears that I'm on his left. But I'm actually directly behind him. But I have the camera on the left so that you can see the scene and not Alan. So he sits up. I actually didn't expect us to be there. He gave a thumbs up. But I told Andy to back off. Andy was on my wheel, and I think I turned the camera around here. Paul had let us go because he figured the park was coming. He's not going to waste energy. He's back there. You can't see him. He's about probably 50 yards back. You know, he's not far. This is where the last time we came through, we ran into a traffic jam, but there's nothing here today. This is the Tomball Expressway. I think it's going to be called the Tomball Expressway. It's going to be a toll road. They're building a major highway over there. So they've got all these roads chewed up. I had seen a squirrel back there darting across the road, and I like those animals. They're so quick. And so I start talking about football wide receivers here, so I think these guys thought I was crazy.
Hey, your back tire is bad. The brakes are working well. Your black tire slides.
Yeah, when Alan hits his brakes, his back tire slides after it stops.
Boom, boom. You get a wide receiver with this kind of moves, nobody keep up with it.
You can see Alan looking at me like, what the hell is this guy talking about?
Just dark, yeah. I mean, it's dark. That's quickness.
A new hybrid breed.
Yeah. That kind of quickness, man, that's what gets you off that line. Let's go. This is good enough.
Yeah, Andy said a new hybrid breed. They're probably wondering why I was talking about football. I guess I got football in my brain after watching the Super Bowl. But the quickness of the squirrels always fascinate me.
Put 28 on the back. Yeah. It's not too much bigger, but man, it's a little bit. It's so comfortable, man. And the acceleration feels better. I bought a cheap one because I wanted to try. It's like a wire bead, gator skin. Doesn't fold, but it's fine. But 95, it said don't go over 100. Gator skin 28, yeah. Not every manufacturer makes a 28. But the Continental does.
Yeah, I'm telling Alan that I'm riding a 28mm rear tire, and I like the comfort. I like the way it takes the bumps. And you know, he rides the Continental GP 4000S, I think.
My caliper is flat. Yeah.
So I'm letting him know that I was concerned about whether it would fit the blue bike because the Campagnolo Super Record caliper is flat. It's not a cathedral shape. But it got in there, no problems. There's a little bit of clearance. I don't think I could go up any higher than a 28 on that frame anyway. I wouldn't want to.
No more than 100 psi.
And I'm telling you, you can't. It's not designed to take a lot of high pressure. They recommend 100, and I think the maximum is 116. I run 95.
I put 95. That's what feels good.
I put 90 in the front of my 23s and 95 on my 28. And it rides comfortably. I love the feel and everything about it. His dog comes out and I'm trying to get his attention.
Behave yourself.
And he did. He behaved himself. He listened. Alan was laughing. Like you're talking to the dog like he's a person. That's what you have to do. You get their attention. I don't know where he was headed. There are no other dogs. So he was running out after Paul and them. Our lab that gets excited is not outside this morning. So as we turn, Alan says he's out of water.
On that corner is a grave. Yeah, I was thinking about it since your calves are.
He said he will go ahead and skip the park. And the store that we stop at is up that hill on the left. So they're just gonna stop there. But once I come out here, I want to ride that park. I like those hills. They're hard, but I like them. That's the reason I come out here. So he said he was going to just ride this hill really hard and then stop at the store. And so when he goes, I let the guys know, okay, he's stopping at the store so that they don't expend too much energy. And then it turns out Andy's out of water too, so he's gonna stop at the store also.
He's stopping at the store.
So I told him he's stopping at the store. Paul goes around Andy. And I just maintain my pace. I stay within about a wheel of Andy's wheel because I know he's going to turn, so I don't want to follow him too closely. So I give him some room there. Now, Alan's already slowing down so he can turn. The store's on the left that we stop at. So they're going to go ahead and stop. They're out of water. And I told Paul we're just going to ride the park.
He's out of water.
So I told Paul, let's go.
Go.
There was a car coming. I told him to go. The car was far back. I always take a wide turn on a wet road. Just keep that bike upright as possible. So I motioned to the driver behind us that we're going straight in here because he caught up to us. And so we rode side by side. We rode the park pretty hard. We chatted a little bit. We rode it like we usually do. Nothing too hard, but we rode these hills. And so there was nothing filmed, just the road because I had the camera. And we're riding side by side. So this is when we come out of the park and we're turning into the store. The guys are already, they got some Gatorade water. They're sitting there. And I pull in here. And the guy at the store we've known for a long time is Sean. He's from India. Really nice guy. And I know his dad too. His dad works here sometimes.
This must be where they sell it.
That's they sell firewood at Duraflame stuff. Season's almost over anyway. We still get fronts, even though it's warming up now. Until April, late April, say May, we still get fronts in the area.
So how long before you get your stuff?
So we're talking about Paul. Paul bought a new saddle, stem, different things to set up. The bike that he won is a Giant Propel, which is an aerodynamic Giant, a road frame. He said it's a 2015 model. So it's a beautiful bike. So we're gonna set it up. I'll do a film on it. You know, I'm sure Paul will let me do a film on it. I'll help him with the setup, and we'll do a film, all the detail. I know you guys would like to see that.
What is it?
But that's what we're talking about. He's talking about where he sourced his parts. And I was not familiar with the online vendor.
Hey man, how you doing? Good, good. Let me get some water, man. How you been? Good? How's your dad? He's doing good. Okay.
I didn't want to put Sean on the film here, so that's why you see the camera moving around. I came to get my bottles. What I needed was some water and ice because I have electrolytes already. The guys already bought some more Gatorade, so I'm going inside to put some ice in there. I used the opportunity to change the battery in the camera. So at this point, the camera says low battery.
Yeah, because it out. Low battery. Okay.
So after the break, we head on the FM 2920. At this point of the ride, I don't know if you can tell, earlier in the ride when we're coming, you could see the clouds. There was a little bit of sun. Now look at it. a front blew in while we're at the store. So we decided to give it a stick and get this ride wrapped up.
There it is.
So I'm giving Paul the camera. I just turned it on. So I changed the battery and everything. And the weather has changed for the worse. So we're heading homeward. And we decided we're going to pick up the pace and get this ride done. So at the break, I intentionally kept the camera moving around. I did not want to film the guy. You know, I don't know if he wanted to be on YouTube or not. I hadn't talked to him before I walked in there with a camera. So that's why I did not focus on him. But that's the store we stopped at. It's a very nice guy, very personable fellow. Excuse me. We chat with him often. I got to meet his dad. Dad's really cool. So I roll up to the boys, get in the draft. I stay a little to the right because right now the wind has completely shifted from where it was earlier. I'm letting Paul know there's a hole on the road here to avoid it. The wind is now coming from our left, which is north. The wind had been coming from our right. If it had stayed the same, I would have been on the opposite side. So instead of it coming from the south on our right, it's now coming from the north because a front is blowing in. The temperature has dropped a little bit. You can see it says 14C. We had been up to like 16C. So even though the range is tight, it's changing. And that's bringing rain. So it's just rained here a little while before we got here.
So yeah, if we can get it, they have a little bit of setback. Those are the things you have to check. A new frame starts everything all over. Right.
So I'm explaining to Paul that because his frame is new and different, and it may have a different seat angle, different top tube, and all of that, he had to be careful how it's fitted. You can't use the exact measurements from the other bikes. You have to make sure you measure your top tube on the new frame and then figure out what stem you need. So that's what we're talking about right there as we settle into this return part of the ride. So all I did at the stop was I drank a little bit of Gatorade, and I didn't even use a gel, so I was feeling good. So I rolled through here. There's a piece of concrete somebody dropped on the road. It's been there forever. Those are the little things that can upset your bike. I ended up hitting a rock later on this stretch, my right heel. I don't remember where it happened. Probably won't be able to tell on the video. Yeah, but I hit a rock square on the front wheel. I'm glad it was the front wheel. There's not much weight on there. Those are the kind of rocks that can cause a pinch flat. It's a small rock, but it's enough to where if you were to hit it while seated, it could pinch your tube. And it's one of those that's hard to see. Some of them look exactly like the color of the asphalt. I don't even know where they come from. They just seem to be on the roads all over the place in odd spots. Like you wonder how they get there. Almost like somebody's driving down the highway dropping off rocks. Because, you know, it's not a new construction area or anything you want. And those rocks around here, they buy them. The rocks that they use to make driveways or even make the roads. They just seem to pop up in the oddest spots. Anyway, Alan's pulling here at a good clip. You can see 39 kilometers an hour. The wind is coming from our left and in our face. Because I'm in the draft, I'm at the top of zone 3 right now. We go ahead and get through this light. We did not want to stop. You can see my cadence. I'm keeping it close to the century mark to be ready for anything. So if you're going to do any kind of group riding, you want to be able to vary your cadence. The guys I coach, Even when they're doing bass training, that's what we work on. Yeah, stay in this zone, but you need to vary your cadence. Even if you got to put it in a smaller gear, you got to teach your body to pedal at that rhythm. Then when you get in a bigger gear, you'll be able to pedal at the same rhythm. Granted, you'll be working your muscles harder. But by staying in a reasonable gear, when the speed changes, you don't have to grit your teeth or strain your back. You just spin a little faster. And then when it slows down, you just soft pedal. That's how you ride in a group. It keeps you smooth. So you never need to use your brakes. If you play it right. See me soft pedaling there? Soft pedaling does not mean you stop pedaling. What it means is you slow down your pedaling. Your legs are still moving around, but not in anger. So now my cadence has dropped. I'm in the same gear. I'm just pedaling at a slower cadence because Alan slowed down at the front. Maybe the wind picked up, I'm not sure. But we're riding almost at 40 kilometers an hour. And because of the draft, I'm sitting in zone 3. Because it's not a perfect tailwind. We've got wind from our left and in our face. You can hear it. So I'm making sure I stay. I think it's somewhere around here I hit the rock. I don't know if I reacted and everybody, because they heard the sound. That's why you got to keep your wits about you. The bars bounced into my palms. You can see how I'm holding my bars. They just bounced into my palm and I realized I hit a rock. The front wheel hit it. The rock flicked to the rock. I think this is where it happened. I think that I told Paul I hit a rock. Because Alan looked behind and I told him that we're okay. I think that's where it happened. It's hard to say. I think that's where it happened, but yeah, it had to be. I'm warning Paul about that, yeah. So even though it happened, you couldn't really tell on film. It did not throw off what I was doing. So it all comes down to your comfort level, how well your bike fits you. You can handle so much more when everything fits. I can't stress that enough. So this is an incline here. It may not register, but it's going up. It's a drag, it's a false flat, and it says 1%. You feel it. And I like this road because it's not completely flat, and the surface is not smooth. They put rocks down, then they ran the asphalt. So the road holds up, but it's rough. So you have to work. Alan's done pulling. And he let Andy know that he was pulling off. So I rolled through with Andy. Paul's still behind me. At this point, it's actually raining a little bit. You can see it on the camera lens. So we're doing 38 kilometers an hour on a slight uphill, you know, false flat, into the wind. It's not easy. You can see my heart rate has gotten to 170 instead of 161. So it's gone up about 10 beats. Now, I mentioned heart rate and stuff like that because what I need you guys to understand is somebody else's heart rate might go up 15 or 20 beats. We're stopping here. When you train consistently and you're fit, your heart rate takes more work in the right conditions for it to go up. Because we stopped so suddenly, I'm having to downshift because I was in a bigger gear because I don't want to bog down when the light changes because that's a little incline there. So that's a little, I hold my front brake, lift the bike, shift, and spin my leg that's clipped in. I'm putting on my glasses because I'm following Andy and the rain's coming down. You saw Paul cleaning the lens of the camera, the lens cover. The rain is coming down. You can see it. If you look closer, you see it dropping. If you look at my jersey, you can see the little white specks. It's raining right now. It's light rain.
Oh, we made good time.
Oh yeah, we got some good.
I told Alan we made good time. The light changes and we resume. And because I'm in the right gear, that's just my style. I may look like I'm laboring, but I'm not. There's a lot of snap in those legs. You can see I got right up to Andy. I stand because it's a little bumpy after you get off here initially. They did this as an afterthought. It's not a pure bike lane right there. That's just the edge of the road, you know. But at least it's there. Keeps us out of the main lanes because it's a busy road. So I put on my glasses because of the rain, and every now and then, you know, the spray. I don't want anything getting in my eyes. It's basically raining now. If you look closely, you see the rain being blown. The wind's coming from the left, and it's blowing it across us. So as we approach this intersection, there's a couple of cars here turning right. That little black one in the front. And that's what you want to pay attention to. So the black one is in front of us. So I'll let this driver know we're going straight. That's what that signal's for. And that's for that other guy parked over there. You can turn right on red in Texas, so he was waiting. Those are the areas that you pay the most attention to because that's where things happen as far as the other road users are concerned. So we resume. So Andy's going pretty hard here. I can tell by his body language. And so I roll up to him. If you look at our pace, it says a minute 35 per kilometer or something like that, 135 per kilometer. We've got about 70 kilometers on the clock. I roll up and I keep my cadence in the 90s. That's like basically what I'm doing is I'm cruising behind him and I'm using the draft. So Paul's behind me. I'm behind Andy, and Alan is behind Paul. So parts of this road is chewed up coming up here. So what I end up doing is I look behind. I don't want to break up my rhythm. I don't want to stand. I look behind. The main lanes are clear. I let the boys know. I told Andy you can use the road. Right there is chewed up. But I guess, yeah, okay, he moved over a little bit. That way I could keep my rhythm the same. Because that little move slowed us down a bit. And the wind's picking up. You can see his speed's dropping. So in situations like this, if I'm at the front, I downshift one cog and spin a little. Instead of letting your legs bear the brunt of the wind. As the wind picks up, you want to be able to handle that. So in about probably 100 yards, we're going to turn right. I don't know if it's that close. Maybe a half a kilometer. There's a light up there. I don't know if you can see it. Traffic light. We're going to turn right. We're going to take the long way. Sometimes in the past, we'd go straight on some rides and cut by the discount tire. But today, we're going to go right because the ride's short. And going right will extend it, and it's just more fun. So I tell Andy we're turning right. That's why he hesitated there to ask where we're going. So we're turning right. I let the boys know, back off the pace. And I said, watch for the white lines. So right after we turn here, Andy pulls off to the left. And you would think the wind would be directly behind us, but that was not the case. That thing was still blowing. So I told him, good pull. I rolled through. And I think I take my glasses off because it's full of, there's water all over it. I can't see well. Yeah, I take it off and put it on the back of my head. I don't need it. I'm not following anybody to worry about spray. I don't have to worry about bugs on a day like this. They don't like the wind. So you can see how I sit in, well, like I said, in my saddle. My sit bones are supported by the saddle, and I'm basically over the pedals to where I'm anchored by the saddle, and all I can focus on is pedaling. It's like you're suspended by that saddle, and then the rear of the saddle supports your glutes. You can hear the wind. The wind seemed to be everywhere. As we turned here, it was on our left and then in my face. And I just continue to drive the pedals. I'm watching that car. I move over a little more. So that's what I pay attention to when I'm riding. What's coming up? What's going to be in my path? Whether it's a dog or whatever. That's why all I do when I'm on the bike is I ride. There's no headphones, no nothing. You need your wits about you. You need to be paying attention to what's coming up so you can avoid obstacles. So it's raining and it's windy, and I decided we're just gonna go ahead and get this ride wrapped up. There's a hole there. I think around here I may have downshifted briefly and revved up. Not sure if it's here. I've already done it, but the wind was picking up to the point where I wanted to keep the speeds the same. I made it 53.16, I think, at this point. So it's a big gear for these conditions, but my legs felt good. I had saved them most of the ride, and so now I decided to drive them hard. And that's what I'm doing here. It's the kind of cadence I would probably keep in a time trial. Mid 80s to the low 90s. Especially in these kind of conditions. There's a car parked on the right side of the road. So I wave the boys over. He's got his flashers going. We're gonna go right at the intersection. I check for cars. It's clear. I tell them about a wide line. I take a wide, because the whole thing is clear. Wide turn. Keep that bike straight as possible. I look back to make sure the boys get back up, get through the turn okay, and then I resume. Since I'm used to going hard at the end of rides, this was perfect because I wanted to work hard here at this part of the ride. And I just concentrated on staying as smooth as possible, making sure I did not overuse any one group of muscles. Use the whole pedal cycle. We're going to be turning left. I let the boys know. They said it was clear. Paul moved over. I moved over. At this point, we pick up another rider who I've never seen before. He was out riding and he saw us. And at this light, I just noticed he was behind us.
Stop it.
I let him know we're stopping.
One day I was at the light and my wheel was on this.
Yeah.
When I took off,
Yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Here comes the rain.
This is where we're telling the new rider. We just saw a rider sitting behind us, so we told him good morning. And here comes the rain. It's raining. I was telling the guys that one day at a light, my back wheel was on the white line. When I took off, it slipped. I mean, it didn't bother me that much, but I never keep my back wheel on the white line anymore to start, to take off, basically, off of the slipper. You can see the rain. The rain shows up. It actually felt pretty good. So we've got a rider that joined us, and he's sitting in right now. see the rain. So I slot in behind Alan, and I stayed a little to his left, which is not the ideal drafting spot. The wind's coming from in front and to our left, because now it's blowing from the north. That's what's bringing his rain. But he's sitting so close to the edge of the road, there's no room to really get on his right to draft, and I don't want to ride by the edge of that sidewalk. We have the whole lane. So now he moves over a little bit. You can see I move over to the right. Now that's the ideal spot. Ideally, he should be more to the left. So when you know, those are the kind of little nuances that you can save some energy. So I'm sitting in there, and then after a little while, I notice that he's moving from where he is back into the water. So I'm getting a lot of spray. And so I just decided, well, I might as well just go to the front, because I don't have my glasses on, because I had taken them off. So I really did not want any kind of dirt from the road to get in my eyes. You can see where I'm riding. That's not ideal. We're too close to the edge of the road, and we've got the whole lane. So I decide here I'm just going to go ahead and take the lead to avoid getting water in my eyes. So you can see how much of the lane I'm using. So I get to the front and I stay near the middle of the lane. You can hear the wind. I mean, that's what we heard. This front actively came in and dropped the temperatures. The rain actually felt good. So I decided I'm to just drive the pedals and get us home. So Paul's directly behind me, because with my mud guards, he doesn't have to worry about spray. So when I moved back there, he followed me.
Yeah, right? You didn't bring a towel?
I got a towel there.
Yeah.
Sit on a towel.
Well, the towel would have probably gotten wet though.
Don't tell no.
Put it in your
Mr. Jenkins. You're breaking numerous laws.
Alan was talking about having a towel to wipe his face because of the rain. Usually he'll carry like a washcloth in his pocket. That's what we're talking about. I told him it probably would have gotten wet. So the light changes, we take off, we resume. You can see the rain. It's raining. That's the rain. And the wind's coming from the north on our left, and that's what's blowing. We're headed northeast. You can see it blowing the rain sideways. So the entire part of this ride, we've been fighting that wind. So I'm amazed at the speeds that we were holding. So I'm just keeping my head down and let the wind do its thing, and I'm gonna do my thing. It's not cold or anything. It's a mild morning, so everything felt great. The rain felt good. I did not need to put on the rain cape or anything, because really it was kind of a blowing rain, but not heavy. That's the guy that joined us. His name is Daryl. I ended up introducing myself to him later. But you can see what we're dealing with. Daryl's all wet. Looks like he's got like a cotton shirt on or something. Daryl said that he usually rides with his wife, but his wife told him, forget it, it's raining, I'm not going out. So he was out by himself when he came across us, I guess, at the light. So he rode with us all the way back to the start of the ride. So I guess he lives in the area. I told him about where we leave. I've told him about the beginning of the ride, where we leave from. And so I hope you guys got a chance to get out and get some K's in. But this is what we did on Saturday.